Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webcast. My name is Mike Otranto, and I'm a strategic accounts specialist at Microsoft. I'm also joined on today's webcast with Jim Patterson, who leads in the business development role, and Matt Wiley, a project guru and technology expert. Today, we will focus on agile and traditional project management, homogeneous or hybrid. After the webinar, you will receive an email with a copy of the recording and the slide deck so you can review. The line will not be open for questions, but you can type in your questions via the chat feature. So if you want to know more about Microsoft and who we are today, we are a Microsoft joint venture that was founded in 2002. We provide consulting, business process outsourcing, managed services, and global support for staffing. We are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. Less than 1% of partners ever have that designation. We are certified in project portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. From a project and portfolio management standpoint, we have a deep expertise in Project Online and Project Server. So we have a lot of experience helping organizations maximize their efficiency and technological advantage. We have a footprint all over North America and internationally. I will now hand off the webcast to Jim Patterson. Jim?
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate that. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for spending some time with us today. My name is Jim Patterson, and we're here to talk about Agile and traditional project management and how these play out in either more homogeneous models or more of a hybrid working together model to get more effective within our organizations. Today, we're going to tee this up with a few concepts on current trends that we see in the marketplace. We'll then talk about what we mean by hybrid project management approaches out there and some of the things to consider. And then we'll spend a good chunk of our time in demonstration of seeing these things in action with solutions that are available and in place. And then we'll do a summary up as far as recapping what was in the presentation and give you some ideas on what you might be able to do next if you're interested in pursuing this. So with that, let's get started and let's talk about some current trends in the marketplace. You know, ultimately, there's an ever increasing rise in technology. Companies that were formerly brick and mortar types of companies, more and more are becoming digital or technology companies. So even ones that maybe you don't even think of as technology companies are becoming more and more dependent on the development of software and digital technology. If you look at the transformation of businesses over the years, department stores have become into the Amazons of the world online. You know, Blockbuster was basically squashed and supplanted by Netflix. You know, the taxi cab and livery type of businesses are being overtaken by the Ubers and the Lyft and the app-generated types of ride shares that are available. And even things like buying soft drinks in a fast food store is being used with more digital technology as opposed to the more manual types of things that we have there before. So the examples of this are really pretty much endless. But the idea is that every company is really becoming a software company at some port of their business. And what this is doing is it's really shaking up traditional business models and the way things have to be managed and the things that have to be considered. And this affects everybody from the executives who are finding new ways to bring their business to the customers and find new opportunities out there in the marketplace using digital technology, the PMOs who have to manage a wide disparity of types of projects within an organization with a lot of different methodologies, the software development folks that actually have to deliver these technologies and do it in a way that meets the needs and meets the expectations of the marketplace, as well as then turning that over to support to make sure that we can support these and make sure the customers are happy and also enhance and fix these things as we go on through. Ultimately, you know, the software and software-driven types of methodologies are becoming more and more prevalent as we go on through and how that affects the way we manage projects. So to that end, Agile and variations of Agile approaches in project management, adoption of these are on the rise. Because of all this digital transformation, the need or the desire or the fit for Agile is really increasing. Version 1, an Agile company or an Agile software company does an annual state of Agile survey for the marketplace. And in the last one that was published, surveying people in the year 2016, 94% of companies are practicing Agile somewhere in their companies. Now, that doesn't mean that they've adopted wholesale Agile, but there is a place for Agile within the organizations where there are teams and groups that are using Agile. And if you look at the rapid adoption, that went from 80% up in 2011 all the way up to 88% in 2013, and to now where we're up to 94%. That's a very, very high percentage, which means it's something that needs to be dealt with or addressed at least in every organization primarily. Now, some organizations aren't agile in their mentality or their approach or their culture from top down. A lot of Agile starts down at the team levels and bubbles up through an organization based on the success of those teams. So some organizations sometimes resist going to Agile, especially at the leadership levels. And some of the more common concerns are about the fact that they see it as they're not familiar with the new methods. So they're used to more waterfall types of planning where there's a lot of upfront planning and requirements, documents, and other things like that. And Agile is really about spending the time on development and doing continuous delivery and iterative process. And when you enable or empower the teams like that, sometimes there's a fear of a loss of management control. So there's other aspects that mean that while Agile is a good fit for software development, you may not have an organization where people are 100% bought in top to bottom and across horizontally across the organization into Agile adoption, meaning you may have a variety of methodologies being used within a company. But that's not all bad. A blend of approaches enables organizational agility. And if you look at PMI's Capturing the Value of Project Management Through Organizational Agility paper, smart organizations realize that using agile techniques such as Scrum or DevOps is not the only or even best indicator of an organization's speed or flexibility. Most organizations are more likely to use several different project management approaches, and they could be using Agile, more Lean or Kanban. They could be using waterfall. They may be doing more extreme programming types of approaches in project management. But the idea here is that it's generally a mix in most organizations, whether it be from cultural acceptance or just better fit for the type of work that's being done. But the way that manifests itself today in the marketplace as we see it, it ends up with a lot of disconnected systems and processes. And what that does is meaning people are using different systems dedicated to the different types of work and methodologies that are being used in different groups, teams, business units, divisions, departments, whatever it might be. And then you end up with a lot of disconnected information, processes, sometimes conflicts on priorities on what we're working on. And this is even supplemented by maybe even spreadsheets that people are doing off to the side. So the idea here is we're focused in project management oftentimes on the traditional project management or PPM type of approaches that are using more waterfall approaches. And in the center silo, the leader in that is really, and the footprint out there as far as the number of users is people that use Microsoft Project for doing waterfall type planning. But then again, on the software side of things, in application management, this is where people are doing software development, building and maintaining applications and delivering them to their companies or to their customers. People are using more agile approaches, and they're using tools that are more designed for those agile methodologies, things like Visual Studio TFS or the cloud version VSTS, Jira, version 1, and other types of softwares are being used for that. And the idea is that oftentimes the teams are using this off to the side on a team basis rather than on a more organizational basis. And there's even ad hoc or more unstructured work that's going on in service management or ITIL-based tools, things like ServiceNow, et cetera. And the idea is when you look at this, you end up with a lot of different systems, different places to go, and oftentimes a resource that actually has to deliver on things, sometimes has to monitor, all of these systems and some spreadsheets and other things just to see what's on their plate and to fulfill what's expected of them. So ultimately, there's technology-driven challenges. How do you find your way through the maze, right, and manage my work? Sometimes there's not the kind of transparency that you want, maybe not the right balance of agility, maybe loss of cross-functional visibility across things, and maybe execution. Maybe there's manual processes that really bog us down and make us less efficient than we need to be, things like duplicate entry and other things. And ultimately, these things can result in poor customer service or poor delivery, poor quality, whatever it makes, the list goes on and on. So can your organization afford this? Can you, the net result of some of these things, and you look at this wall, it's really meant to be a metaphor for barriers. It could be barriers between different parts of our company, different departments, different functional units. It could be barriers between us and our customers. And the idea is that if we end up with these silos of information and a lack of integrated execution, we could end up with things like low response times and communication barriers, no consistent processes, lost productivity, ineffective ways of working, which can also lead to frustration on our user base and our employee base, which can result in high turnover, which has its own net negative impact. So the idea is here is if we don't address this, all of these things can bite us in our organizations. And this affects all the different roles as we talked about earlier on. You know, you could have with all these different systems, you could have project managers that maybe don't have visibility into the dev schedules that are being managed in the Agile tools or off to the side by the teams and can't react quickly to changes based upon progress or lack thereof. Risk resources can be distributed all over the place. You know, the developers, they need different tools for planning and doing things in an Agile fashion. So maybe things that are very closely tied in with their code management and other things like that. And executives, oftentimes they don't get from the PMO and others the visibility into strategic alignment or full visibility into a single holistic portfolio of all their investments because they're segregated by the different methodologies. Or if they are getting it, people are going through a lot of work on a manual basis to tie these things together and really manually mash the data together so that they can get combined views of all this work that is coming from different systems, spreadsheets, et cetera. So the idea here is how do we mitigate this, and how do we make this better for the organization and for the end result? So with that, let's talk about some hybrid approaches, things that maybe incorporate or tie these things better together. And this is an idea that Wickersoft has come up with. You know, in early 2015, the Gartner group introduced the term bimodal IT. But bimodal isn't just really the domain of IT. But it is really the practice of managing two separate and coherent modes of delivery, one focused on stability and the other agility. And if you look at mode one, it's talking about a linear approach to change, emphasizing predictability, reliability, stability, you know, steady as she goes. And the analogy there is more of a marathon runner with longer cycle time type of projects. And this is where the waterfall model and traditional approaches come in. And usually tied to this in the PPM solutions is a very heavy governance model where you have intake, governance, approval, and then monitoring and visibility to these projects as you go on through a particular methodology. And that has a place in an organization. It's a value. Leadership wants to see how their investments are tracking and how we're coming along and when we're going to expect the value to get from those things. On the other hand, all the things we talked about earlier on about the pressures of the marketplace and the digital transformation that's going on out there, people and teams that are delivering are finding the needs to become more agile. And this is a more non-linear, iterative approach, emphasizing agility and speed and also responding to change and managing uncertainty. And the idea is that the analogy here is really more of a sprinter with shorter cycle times and iterations and more continuous delivery. Using approaches like Agile and the different variations of that, Lean, Kanban, et cetera. And the idea is that these are not mutually exclusive and it's not an either or. And you may have some folks saying, trying to push everybody into the PPM model, or Agile folks that are, you know, very passionate about it may saying, you know, we should be doing everything Agile. And in reality, many organizations feel that not every project is well aligned to use either of those things. And there's a place for both within the organization. So ultimately, just a high level of a few of the disconnections that happen. In a traditional PPM, which is the domain of the traditional PMO, is sometimes Agile can become a little bit of a black hole to the PMO, and they have no visibility into the business deliverables, and they have trouble without a lot of manual effort to manage and provide a holistic portfolio and visibility into those investments to leadership. And also they have the need to be able to apply CapEx and OpEx to Agile projects. Now, Agile folks, they want Agile for a reason, to become quicker to deliver, more responsive, more nimble and responsive. And the idea is sometimes they see the governance and the PPM process as adding overhead to what they're doing. And the idea is how can they quickly deliver value with continuous builds with PPM? And the idea they view it as overhead that's slowing them down. And at a minimum, at times, it also provides the need for them to actually do duplicate entry because they're actually managing the true execution over in their Agile tools, but then leadership needs reporting and information up in the traditional portfolio management reporting. And oftentimes they're managing two sets of books to satisfy both of those needs. So neither of those ends up being an efficient process in that regard. So what we really need to do is find the right balance. How do we find enough governance and enough agility? You know, the governance gives us enough visibility, insight, alignment, and control, but agility giving us the innovation, time to market, and responsiveness that an organization needs to do to compete in this day and respond to market pressures. So instead of having separate solutions, we really are promoting a hybrid project management world where there's unified PPM, where agile and non-agile projects will reside in the same portfolios and have visibility and metrics that leadership can see to holistically manage that portfolio and determine the health of those. So the idea here is tying that business strategy and portfolio level information down to the execution level, which may vary. Using Microsoft Project Online, which is the Microsoft's Project and Portfolio Management or PPM solution. If you look at the blue bar across the top, this really is meant to represent that it's an end-to-end project and portfolio management solution, meaning from demand management, all the way from the early ideas to formal requests, to the portfolio management where we're actually selecting what projects we're working on and valuing those projects and maybe doing strategic alignment, through all the execution pieces, whether it be resource, schedule, financials, time reporting, and then all the business intelligence and analytics that go on through that. That ends up being the domain of a best-of-breed project and portfolio management solution. Now, if you're using traditional waterfall projects, these PPM solutions have on board and native to them great planning tools, either using Microsoft Project on the desktop or Project Web Access, which is the web version of that. You can structure, plan, and maintain waterfall projects natively within Project Online. Now, there's some things you can do to maybe do some Agile-like types of things in there natively, and we do some of that. We provide that for our customers, but the Agile teams tend to prefer tools that are designed for that Agile approach. If you look at the middle column here in this diagram, this is where, even though the portfolio and the common intake and governance process may be managed in Project Online, Wickersoft's Project Connect really provides productized connectors so that teams can actually execute with Visual Studio, Jira, Rally, version 1, and other Agile tools, yet still have the Project Online portfolio be the center of the universe for all that portfolio of information. And we'll talk more about that later and actually demonstrate it. And there's also lighter weight tools like Office 365 Planner and SharePoint, Wunderlist that can be used where actually elements of projects can be managed and fed into that portfolio as well. But our focus here today is on the Agile piece. So through Wickersoft, we can offer a number of different options to address Agile. So there's some things we can do right within Project Online, but either way, all the program, portfolio management, financial and capacity planning, investment approval, kind of that single intake business case and approval process happens in the portfolio management solution, which in this case at the top is Project Online. If it's a waterfall project, you just use the native onboard planning tools, and then you can work with those in waterfall projects in Microsoft Project or Project Web Access. There are some tools where we can actually, where we've incorporated some things that can actually do more agile, iterative-based planning and feed that into the portfolio as well. But as I said, most Agile purists and folks that are doing Agile are probably looking to do things with more Agile focused tools. And to that end, using our Project Connect, we have use cases where you would still use the waterfall planning in Microsoft Project, but for example, using Visual Studio, that's common in the marketplace, probably our most common, one of our two most common requests for our Connect platform. Doing the Agile planning, planning out your backlogs, planning out your sprints and your iterations, managing those through their different states or stages in there, even doing some things like providing status and time in there are things that all get fed back on an automated basis to the portfolio so that the Agile teams don't have to do duplicate entry and they don't have to do something unnatural in order to provide information to leadership. The same use case, identically, can be done within Jira, which is another popular Agile tool that's out there. The idea is if you're using Jira today and it's disconnected from your PPM solution, Project Connect can actually bring those worlds together so that the teams can actually be doing their work heads down like they would do naturally in Jira, and then Project Connect would have Project Online pick up the relevant data on a scheduled or routine basis without the end user in Jira having to do anything else other than manage their work in Jira. Another key piece in here is that because we're bringing in data from the Agile tools as well as the waterfall schedules, we do have the opportunity to do combined capacity planning. So to really do resource capacity planning, if you only have a partial picture in these different silos, each having a little piece of the workload, it's very difficult to have a connected resource capacity plan and assess your demand and your ability to apply resources to new requests that come in. So given the fact that we can pull data from the Agile tools and pull it into the portfolio management solution and use that as a central resource management hub, we can start getting good combined information if we provide that information in all the different tools, but bring them together without manually mashing it together. Same thing with time reporting. If a timesheet system is often the domain of a PPM solution from a project management perspective, and Project Online has a good timesheet system that's fully integrated into that. Now, instead of having to manage your tool in Visual Studio or Jira or whatever it might be, and then have to go separately to a timesheet in Project Online to put that actual time in, Project Connect actually allows you to enter that time right in the tool that you're living in, whether it be Visual Studio, Jira, what have you, and have that time automatically flow back to that timesheet so you're never going to have to enter that information twice or go to two different places to fulfill that commitment. And then ultimately, because we're bringing all that data together in Project Online and we're using Power BI that can use multiple data sources for this information, we can get some really rich and robust reporting. So we can get Agile metrics and more traditional PPM metrics, more portfolio metrics on things like cost and resources and return on investment and risk. And all those things can be combined as a natural output of the process. We find a common pain out there today is that people are going through a lot of time and effort and pain doing manual efforts, significant manual effort, bringing this data together and putting it into PowerPoints and other types of reports or mashing them together into data sources that can be used in other reporting tools. This can be a natural output of the process if we do this right, that where you manage your process, you update your data in your own execution tools and in your planning tools, and have that information flow through to provide natural outputs out here in Power BI. We'll show some of that here in the demonstration today. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Matt Willey, who will demonstrate some of these technologies and what's available today. All of this is available. So Matthew, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jim. All right. So I'm logged in here into Project Online, and Project Online is just one of the applications that's part of the Office 365 platform. However, if you're not already using Office 365, you can use Project Online on its own as well. But if you are using Office 365, there's a lot of tie-ins. So for example, with Power BI, I'll show some reports later how Power BI can report off of Project Online, and from a document management perspective with OneDrive, and so on and so forth. So jumping on into Project Online, what I'm looking at here is a list of all of my different projects that I have going on right now. Some of these projects are in the requested state, some are approved, in progress, so on and so forth. And then I have some indicators I can see here, like overall health, schedule health, work health, etc., and even a high-level timeline or roadmap slash kind of Gantt chart, if you want to call it that as well. And so this is my one place to go, my one version of the truth for all of my different projects and to get the status on these projects. Some of these may be managed in another tool like a Jira or a Visual Studio Team Services or TFS. Some of them might be managed right here within Project Online. Just depends on the type of project and what lends itself better for the different tools. But at the end of the day, that all flows back up into my one portfolio, so I have one place to go to see how my projects are doing and how much we're spending and the resources and so on and so forth. So let's jump in and see how this all works. So up front, you might be collecting different ideas or project requests. And those ideas at some point may look interesting, like things that we might want to do. You know, there's this new mobile app we want to build or whatever it might be, those types of things. And we can do some light prioritization, start to get a score here and start ranking these things and rating these things and having kind of the better ideas or the better project requests bubble their way up to the top. From there, we can take that and we can go, okay, yep, this one looks good. I want to move this into my project list, and we can. There's this flow here where we're going to flow through a full-on, project intake process. And there's a portfolio analysis module in here that I won't show today, but it allows you to do some high-level cost planning and resource planning, more top-down portfolio planning to figure out what we can do within our budgets and with the resources we have, so on and so forth, and come out with an optimized portfolio of things that are going to help drive the most value for our business. At that point, now we have some approved projects, kind of moving into the approved stage here, or starting to go into the in progress area. And that's when we're going to go and start actually planning these projects more from an execution perspective. Project's been approved, we're now going to assign a project manager and or scrum master, depending on the type of project, or product owner, and start getting going. So generally, if you were using just standard Project Online and you were going to go build your project schedule, you'd come in and you'd say, I want to open this up in Microsoft Project or the online planner right within Project Online. And that pops up in Microsoft Project, and you can come in and you can build your general waterfall schedule or start from a template like you may already be used to. But as another option, what if I want to manage this project? Let's start out over in Visual Studio Team Services, which is the cloud version of TFS, but we can also do the on-prem version of TFS as well. Same use case. Instead of clicking on Open in Project, I just say I want to open this over in Visual Studio Team Services. At that point, if that project doesn't already exist in Visual Studio Team Services, it will actually create it. If it does already exist, then it's just linking me over here. So it gives me a quick, easy way to get to my project schedule, if you want to call it that, or my backlog, and start planning into my different sprints or iterations. People that work in VSTS all day, every day, though, can just come right into VSTS like they always do, come straight to this project once it's been created, and work like they always do, and this information is going to feed back over into Project Online. So I can come in and I can build out my backlog of all of my different epics, break those down into different features, down into different user stories, and down into different tasks and bugs. And you don't have to use this particular hierarchy of backlog items. You can use any hierarchy that you're using based off of what methodology and templates you're using. But the point is I can come build out my backlog, and then I can drag and drop these things like my different user stories into my different sprints or iterations. From there, I can go into a particular sprint or iteration, and I can open up my Kanban board, and I can utilize the Kanban board to update status by dragging and dropping from one stage to the next. And I can even update time on these items just by saying, yep, I spent 8 hours on this today, save and close, and put in my time for that. So multiple different ways that you can track items here within Visual Studio Team Services, but the idea is as I'm creating these items and as I'm building my different iterations and such and going into my Kanban board, that's all going to push back into Project Online. And there's actually a little button in here that we can do that on demand, or we can do it just every night or every hour, however often we want. So I can give the Scrum Master control of when they want that information to push back to Project Online. I just simply come here and say I want to publish this to project. And when I do that, it pushes this project's information, or the latest updates anyway, back over into Project Online. If you don't want people to even have to click that button, no problem. We'll schedule it to run every night, every hour, however often you want it to run. And that information will just automatically come back into Project Online that way. So from there, I can come in and I'll go into my project over here in Project Online, and let's take a look at what that looks like when it comes back in. How does that really work? And so if I go into my Fabricam project here, and I'll go and just take a look at it through the online planner, I can see that the items that I had planned into iteration 1, 2, so on and so forth, for instance, the last time I published, are all going to come in. I have a start date and a finish date based off of the iteration that those items were planned into. I bring in, information like work and percent complete and whatever else I might be mapping over. And so when we actually set up this integration, we can pick and choose any pieces of information over in Visual Studio Team Services that we want to bring back into Project Online. We just map those fields through an admin screen that allows us to do so. And we can update that at any time. So if you add a new field over in Visual Studio Team Services that's tracking this new piece of information around these work items, then we can then map that and have that start to come in as well. Lots of different ways you can look at this, though. Right now it's grouped by sprint, but maybe I want to see more like my backlog view. All I have to do is switch my view here, and I can group this lots of different ways. Maybe I want to group it by let's do epic, then feature, then user story, something like that, just like what we saw over in Visual Studio Team Services. So I'll do epic, and then feature, and then story, and say okay. And then it'll update my view here. And so now instead of seeing it grouped by sprint, I can see, okay, here are my different epics, and then my features, and then the stories, and the different tasks and bugs and such below that that we'll actually be working on for this particular project. So that helps me bring the status back into Project Online, and I can get visibility into the timeline of when things are happening, so we can have better visibility into what's going on, not just in our waterfall projects, but our Agile projects as well. The Jira integration works very much the same way, very, very similar. So if I come in and I select my project, and if I wanted to open that up in Jira, I could do so by clicking the Jira button there instead of the Visual Studio Team Services. Again, if the project doesn't exist, it will create it, and or we can link them up. And then I could build out my backlog and go down that whole same flow, use my Kanban board to update my status. You can also put in your time through Jira using the log work feature in here, for example, and say I worked 4 hours on this today, those types of things. And all of that same thing will come back and bring into Project Online. We can even do hybrid scenarios where some of your tasks in your project, some of the work might be managed in a waterfall way, and some might be managed in an Agile way, as what Jim showed in one of his slides earlier. And I'll show what that looks like here real quick. So this is actually part of this project is being managed over in Jira, and part of it is being managed in a waterfall way here in Project Online. So the first part's like the scoping and the analysis and software requirements and the design, that's all being done in a waterfall way. So I actually came into the Online Planner, a Microsoft project, and built out this part of the schedule. However, the development part, where we are developing code here, this is actually rolling in from Jira. So just this development piece is being managed over in Jira in this case. And you can see my user stories with the detailed tasks below them if we set it up to bring in that level of detail. And then after that, we can do training and documentation back over in a waterfall way. So we can actually do hybrids all right within Project Online. Some of this is actually being managed over in Jira in this case. The same thing goes for Visual Studio Team Services or other Agile tools as well. So what does this do for us? One, it gives us the visibility and the status into what's going on. But two, it's also going to give us a better picture of our resources, who's working on what, who's over allocated, who's not, and really better visibility into all of that. So instead of trying to go into Jira and see what people are working on there and try to go to Project on see what people are working on in there, and maybe I'm working on some work in both places, it makes it really hard. You have to do a lot of manual exports and mushing data together in Excel to try to get a better picture of who's working on what. In this case, I simply come in, I select my resources like my business analyst here, and I'm going to click on my capacity planning view, and that's going to allow me to get a better picture of all of the work that my resources are working on. We can even bring operational work into the mix, things like the partner help desk that people might be working on if we're loading in our operational projects into Project Online as well. And so I have a full picture now, and I can see if someone is red, they are over allocated within that period of time. If they're green, that means we're utilizing them properly. So where they're not too far over or under allocated, we're getting a good amount of value out of them without overloading them. And if they're blue, then that means they still have some availability. In this case, some of these people have a lot of availability. They don't have any work, so we need to get them some in the near future. So it really allows me to get that better picture. And this is just one way to look at that information. I can get a lot more detailed information. There are reports and such that allow you to drill in and drill out. But you can start to get a better idea of how we have a full picture of our resources and what they're working Also, from a timesheet perspective, tracking the actual hours then that people are working on these comparatively to what we estimated. At the end of the week, when I come into my timesheet, I don't have to come in and fill out all of my time again that I had already filled out in, say, Jira or VSTS. That time will already be here in my timesheet on the proper items. I just need to add anything else possibly, like administrative time, sick time, vacation, other things that I might have needed to put in my timesheet. And there was a little link back over in Visual Studio Team Services that allows me to easily link to my timesheet. If people are just working in Jira or VSTS and they're not working at all in Project Online, then we can actually set it up so it will automatically save and submit their timesheet for them at the end of the period. They never actually have to come in at all. So it's very flexible and a configurable integration. Depending on your use case, we can set it up to meet what you want to do. So I get the status, I get the resource load, I get the time, and all of that at the end of the day then rolls back into many different reports. So let's take a look at how we can get some better visibility and be a little bit more analytical around all of this information that we're capturing and rolling together. This particular dashboard that I'm looking at here in Power BI is tapping into all of this great data and giving me some visibility into what's going on. So on the left side, I have more traditional waterfall looking types of visualizations, things like portfolio cost and risk gauges, bubble charts showing risk versus ROI, status of projects using indicators and such. But on the right side, I have more agile traditional types of visualizations, things like sprint burnups or burn downs over time, bug trends over time, cumulative flow diagrams, so on and so forth. And so the idea is if I'm a manager of some sort, and I oversee projects that are both agile, waterfall, and hybrid, I don't want to have to go to Jira or VSTS and Project Online to see the different reports for these tools. Now, if people are already working in Jira all day and they want to see the report there, they absolutely can. We're not taking that away. But as a manager, I can come to one place, see all of this information in a meaningful way, all within one dashboard. And if I want more details, I can start to drill into these things. So for example, if I come here and click on project status, it will then take me into the full version of this project status report. And I can see all of my different projects, the status of those projects, whether they're being managed over in Jira or VSTS or Project Online or what. See the status of all those different projects and do filters to be able to filter this down and just look at the ones that I want to look at. I just want to see all the projects where overall health is either red or yellow, for example. Or I could look at it by project type. I just want to see all of my agile projects. I could filter it out for that. So utilizing the filters, I can filter this down and go, okay, 3 of my projects are at risk, 14 are over budget, 16 are behind schedule, and see all of these different details and get visibility into what's going on. Utilizing the tabs across the bottom, I can start to look into my schedule status and see how far I'm off from what I estimated. Some projects are very far off, high numbers here, and some not so much. I can go into my cost information and see budgets versus actuals and what's remaining. I can see costs over time. And most of these reports are drill-in capable. So if I come here and I click on Q4, it will drill in and show me October, November, December. If I come into my work summary, I can see work versus actual work and what's remaining. So really tying in all these different information, pieces of information all into one place where I can come and see and get visibility into what's going on. These reports are mobile enabled. So Power BI has a mobile app for your phone or your tablet. So if you're on the road and you still want to get visibility into those same visualizations and dashboards, you can do that here as well. And that's just a sample of what it would look like. And there's some really cool features built into Power BI that let you come in and see the things you want to see. Do have some ad hoc reporting basically without having to do a lot of work. As an example, let's do a resource management one since we were talking about that earlier. I want to show average work variance by project, something like that. And so as I'm typing, it's kind of helping me out here. So even if I don't know the names of fields and such, it's going to help me through that. And as I typed, it actually created this report based off of what I typed in. So I didn't have to set any X's or Y's or write queries or anything like that. All I had to do was type in this question, very much like an internet search, like a Google or a Bing search, and it brings up this particular chart for me that it just created. If I want to change it, like for example, I want this to be a column chart, I just type in column, now it's a column chart. Or if I want it to be a pie chart, type in pie, now it's a pie chart. So you can come in and there's a bunch of other options here. Get it the way you want it, and then I can pin this back to my dashboard, and I just created a new report just within a few seconds here. If you want to get fancy, you can come in and change fonts and colors, and I want my data colors for this project to be this, and so on and so forth, and add drill-ins and all kinds of cool things, conditional formatting and such. But if you're just looking for a basic report, it can be as simple as that. So one last thing to show here is if you're not full on doing software development and you're not already using a tool like Jira or Visual Studio Team Services and such, there are some light Agile capabilities available right within Project Online using a tool that we've created called OnePlan. And so if I come in and I select one of my projects, just like I could use Jira or VSTS, I can come in and I can actually open this up in OnePlan and have some lightweight Agile planning tools here. The difference is if I don't need to track source code and I'm not looking for all the more DevOps side of things, I'm really just looking to come in and be able to manage a backlog of items and be able to show those in a Kanban board, I can do that. I can come in, build my backlog of my different items. I'm going to show my iterations or sprints for this project. I can drag and drop those into an iteration, and then I can utilize my Kanban board here to update status by dragging and dropping here. So if you're looking for some lightweight capabilities right within Project Online, we have those as well. But what we find is most Agile groups are already using a tool like a Jira or a Visual Studio Team Services. We can integrate those and then roll that all back up into reports so we can get visibility into everything that's going on across these different projects. So with that, I will go ahead and turn it back over to Jim, but hopefully you can see how that all rolls together. We can get visibility from one place without having to do a lot of manual work and manual updating of status and time and such in multiple different places. So I'll turn it back over to Jim for just a couple more slides here, and we'll let you guys go for the day.
All right, thank you, Matthew. That was really good. Hopefully you guys have seen that even though you have a traditional waterfall PPM solution, there's a lot of ways to incorporate different Agile tools and approaches so that we can actually truly have a hybrid environment, and that's all available to you today should you want to leverage it. Also be aware through that Project Connect platform that we have, the software development tools are just one use case for that. It can also be used to integrate with financial data or lighter weight project management tools for waterfall, or even ITSM solutions, or CRM or professional services automation solutions. So the idea is that there's more use cases for this connected, unified work management type of approach beyond just the traditional and Agile use cases that we talked about today. So just keep that in mind. And so the overall value of integration is really getting everybody pulling in the same direction without having to jump through a lot of hoops or doing data gymnastics in order to make it happen. So ultimately, by integrating these things and bringing these hybrid worlds together, we can bring improved portfolio alignment to organizational goals and objectives across all types of projects. And then with this robust PPM solution that we talked about with the integration capabilities, we can get all work and resources into a single view. And not only that, you can actually have the Agile teams looking at the metrics and the approaches and the views that they want to see within their Agile tool, yet it can be translated to a common portfolio so that leadership can see things in a common way as the way they want to track maybe the red, yellow, greens and the different indicators and variances and heat maps that they want to see in their portfolio for tracking their investments. So it brings that together on an automated basis. And Project Connect just quickly and reliably brings together your disparate business systems. Ultimately, hopefully you saw today, you get a holistic view of resource availability and efficiency across that and how we're using them. And just ultimately that provides a better forecasting and more realistic expectations internally for you, your internal customers and external customers. At the end of the day, we want to provide improved central governance for planning and executing and reporting, meaning one intake process is possible for all types of projects. So you can go through the same approval processes, for example, but then when it comes time to execute, you can then veer off and use the different tools that are most appropriate or most preferred by your teams. So the value of hybrid project management is that you keep users working in their primary and preferred tools and solutions, meaning we're not forcing them to do something that they don't think is ideal for what they want to work on. Also, it allows workers to work in tools appropriate for their role and maturity, meaning if there's lighter weight tools or different approaches, they can incorporate other tools that they can actually maintain and sustain, but still have them feed into the overall portfolio requirements. And this improves adoption by minimizing unnecessary complexity for the users. And hopefully this drives a better user experience, which can drive better participation and compliance so that we have complete data and current data within our system. So sometimes participation and compliance can be issues if the use of the system becomes difficult. Hopefully, if we do all these things well, a better collaboration across all areas of the business will be a result. So we see these commonly be benefits of bringing these things all together into a common unified work management platform. So if you're interested in this and you want to talk to Wickersoft, we are a triple gold certified Microsoft partner. We have a lot of experience in project and portfolio management, collaboration and content, and cloud productivity. We have a good footprint all across North America and even globally, so we can help you wherever you are. And if you really want to engage with us and kind of investigate this more, because we kind of gave you a general overview presentation, is contact us. We'll give you a free assessment and roadmap of what it would take to get you from where you're at today to leverage some of these technologies. And we can even chaperone you and provide you a free Project Online trial and give you some support and chaperoning through that trial process so that you get a guided experience through that and get the proper evaluation you need out of that. If you want to see some things about your own personal use cases that might deviate from what you saw in our general demonstration today, we're happy to provide a one-on-one demonstration for your organization, so just let us know. You're going to get a copy of these slides. So the contact, we have a general sales contact, the NA sales for North American sales at wickersoft.com, or any of us that have been on the webinar today, Mike Otranto, myself, Jim Patterson, or Matt Willey, who did the demonstration. We have websites. You can go to us.wickersoft.com. We have Project Online specific content at project-online.com. And Project Connect, if you want to look at that integration platform, it's us.wickersoft.com/Project Connect. And if you go to wickersoft.com/webinars, there's a whole bunch of recorded and upcoming webinars there. So I don't know how you found, maybe how you got to us in this case, but if you go into the Wickersoft webinars, you can see that today's webinar is listed here, and then other future webinars that you can sign up to, the benefits and outcomes of moving to Project Online, Microsoft Project tips and tricks for folks that want more details on working with Microsoft Project, Agile PPM with SAFe, the Scaled Agile Framework. We're doing a piece on that as well. And then there's a whole bunch of a library of recorded webinars that you can access here as well. So with that, I would like to say thank you for joining us and spending your valuable time with us. Hopefully you saw some value in this today, but we're finding that this is trending to where people are really contacting us a lot about bringing the Agile tools and traditional PPM and portfolio management together. So hopefully if you're on that journey, we can be of assistance. Thank you again and have a nice day.